Welcome back to the Dutchy and Swoop Show, an extra special show. We'll still talk about, embarrassing Carlton and the rabble that they are and looking at the Gold Coast game. But we've got an extra special guest today, 170 game superstar, premiership player for the Pies, Copeland Trophy winner, 3-time Marcus Ashcroft winner as well, and former captain of the Lions, Dayne Beams. How are you, mate?
Here he is. Woohoo! Yeah.
Good to be here, boys.
First guest.
First guest.
Very
Really?
special first guest, Beamsy.
I didn't know
How
that.
do you feel about that, my friend?
I'm honoured. Got a good setup here, boys. It's nice.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's good. How you feeling, man?
I'm feeling pretty good. The boys are still sailing pretty well, and we smashed the Blues, which is mostly important. How do you feel about the Blues, Beamsy? Are you one of those that's...
Yeah, they're one of my
hater, or-
teams that I didn't like.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. It's for some players the rivalry's real, but then
Yeah.
other players it's not as embedded, I guess.
Yeah.
But them and Richmond were the two teams that I didn't really like.
It's interesting, Richmond.
Yeah.
Yeah, why Richmond?
I don't know. They just at the time that when I first started playing, they were very mouthy for a team that weren't really doing that well as well. So sometimes I don't mind teams that are mouthy, but they've got the performance to back it up. But Richmond didn't have either, so I don't know why they were
it's
mouthy
interesting.
at that
It's
time.
interesting in the teams that you sort of love to hate, isn't it? Like I was always at Essendon early. They
Yeah,
were
you were
like
saying Essendon,
fucking unbelievable when
Yeah.
I first started, and they were arrogant.
Yeah.
And it just always just stuck in the memory forever.
Well, it's interesting because one of the blokes I ended up playing with and then ended up being coached by was probably the player that I thought was the biggest wanker on the field, and that was Ben Hudson.
Oh yeah.
So he was at the Bulldogs.
Yes,
and
of course,
he
of
had
course.
the biggest mouth you'll ever.
Yeah,
And he'll openly admit that.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
he lacked ability, but he always had that
yeah.
mouth to go with it. And then he came across to Collingwood. He was one of the nicest blokes you'll ever meet. So it's like people have that white line fever as
Yeah,
well. So
100%. Yeah, I could tell, like, if I had $1 for everyone that said I thought you would be the biggest wanker of all time. But you're actually okay.
yeah.
I've heard that so many times, but
Yeah.
because obviously when you cross that white line, you do whatever it takes
100%.
to get the 4 points, and sometimes you step over the line a little bit, don't you?
My white line is just opening up Instagram comments. So that's my. I haven't been on the football field, so that's my white line.
It's the day and age we live in now, isn't
Exactly.
It is.
Beamsy, you started in 2009, so a year after you retired. We just
I was just saying before, I was shattered to miss out on playing with yourself and Steelo, and obviously that little successful period I missed out on just through injury and so forth. That would have been a great time to be at the footy club, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it was. Funny enough, like when I was a kid, I was actually an Essendon supporter, so
okay.
I wasn't a huge Collingwood fan, to be honest.
Yeah.
But having gotten drafted to the club, I didn't really realise probably the magnitude of the football club and like how big it was until I was actually inside the organisation, and just being around some of the older guys was just something that you can't take for granted. Like some kids get drafted into clubs where they're sort of developing and they're got a lot of younger kids there as well. But I was fortunate enough to be around some really experienced players, and that no doubt helps sort of fast track your career.
Definitely.
So getting into the club and just rubbing shoulders with some of those guys was no doubt something that's was able to sort of fast track guys like myself and Steele's careers.
Yeah, awesome.
So Steele talks about winning the premiership in his second year, like you did as well, and being maybe a little bit too young and naive to sort of to think that it was going to happen all the time. So what was that period like of 2010, the drawn grand final, the grand final, then obviously 2011, well publicised, that injury that you copped and missed out on that grand final. What was that sort of period like? And then obviously the succession plan.
Well, it's just one of those things where no doubt you do, and it's like anything in life. When you're young, you just think that life's going to keep rolling, and it's quite easy. And then, as a young 18-year-old, you're moving out of home and having to fend for yourself, and then getting thrown into the biggest organisation in Australia, and then winning a premiership in your second year. It is a lot, and you probably don't take it not that seriously, but I think you don't appreciate it that much. Life's just a big party at that stage, and like you got money, you got fame, and you just think that it's going to keep on happening. And I was also in a position where when I got drafted, the Gold Coast coming into the competition at that time.
Yeah, okay, yeah,
So I was actually offered a 3-year contract with them, but the first 2 years weren't in the AFL system. It was like they were going from the VFL, the TAC Cup into the VFL. Then the third year would have been the first year I had in the AFL.
Yeah.
So like I had that 1 year guarantee of, you know, being in an AFL club, but I decided to throw myself into the draft and. You know, I look back at that period and it was like 2 years. So that 2 years I would have essentially been playing TAC Cup and VFL. I was able to win a premiership and play 43 AFL games in that 2 year period. So it's like hindsight's hindsight's a wonderful thing, isn't it? But like you look back at it, you think, I made the right call. Like you make plenty of wrong decisions throughout your life, but it's also important to, you know, reflect on some of the good ones you make, because we always seem to, as humans these days, we always seem to live in that negative space, you know, like it's always good to remind yourself that you do make good decisions as well at times.
Right. Yeah. Well, in 2000, so what was the injury? Take us back to 2011.
Oh,
and how that all
so
sort of took place.
Yeah, so I had some, later on in the year, I had some groin issues. I'd never had groin issues before in my career, to be honest, not even when I was a junior. And I wasn't the great at, well, I was a gifted natural athlete, so like, you know, running, power and stuff for me wasn't something that came naturally. I was always one of those sort of more natural footballers, you know, use my brain and get to places before other people could get there physically. Like that sort of stuff you can't teach, but like the physical side of things for me were more of a challenge. And I just remember later on in that year, like I was just losing a lot of power, and at that stage I was actually playing predominantly like half forward. So like it was sort of that more sort of up the ground and back. So it's being someone that wasn't naturally gifted with speed at the time, and then having some groin issues that were affecting my power, it was then ultimately affecting my output. And look, I could have sat there and you know, decided, because probably one of those ones where you sort of can push through, but at the same time it's like you're playing in the biggest game. You don't want to let the team down. So I just walked into Mick's office and decided to tell him that I wasn't fit to play, and because it was something that I hid. I was actually funny because I was one of the training sessions that grand final week. I was speaking to Ben Johnson about it. He was someone that like I spoke to about things that, you know, potentially I was keeping quiet. He was one of those guys that I trusted. So I remember speaking to Jono.
He was like that when I was there.
He was just
confided in
wise
Jono.
head.
He was like the boys' sports psych.
He was, wasn't he?
He wouldn't tell anyone anything, but he would never judge you as well.
So I trusted Ben a lot, and like I just said to him, I said, man, I'm like really struggling with this groin. He actually is telling me to play. He's like, no, you got to play, man. You got to play. Okay. And I just thought better. And I was like, look, it was just something inside me was telling me that I, you know, really shouldn't be playing. And I seen Presti do it the year before.
That's right.
And you know, that sort of stuff just rubs off on younger people as well. And so, you know, I looked at a senior player that had played his whole career and probably was dying to play in that grand final, and took a step away. And I thought, you know, that's the right thing to do. So
that's a selfless thing to do, man.
That's
like,
incredible.
I actually don't know if I could do what you did, to be honest. Like I would be thinking, I'll be right 70%, and then if you stuff that up and ruin it for everyone else, that's a big thing to carry around with you as well, isn't it? But
well, I mean, those games are so like tight. So you know, most grand finals are now. I mean, the year before, like, you know, look at that drawn one. It was just literally the bounce of a ball. So there could be moments where you know, I could potentially cost the side. So
and they went in with a couple too, didn't they? Like Ben Reid, remember?
True.
He had a bit of groin too, didn't he?
I think Ben was. It might have been. Well, he was always calf, Reedy. So I'm not sure whether it was groin or calf.
God, that was it.
I just remember him, I think it was Hawkins or something, just pushing him off the ball really easy late in the game, and just you could just tell he didn't have that stability and strength through his hips.
It was crazy. That year we dominated, and I think the only 3 games we lost were all to Geelong.
That's right.
What was that like that domination throughout the year? Like, it was very, very different. I remember 2011 going to games and just like sitting back in my seat and being like, how fast are we going to get to 100 points today? Like, that's just what it felt like.
You know what? Like, now that you say it, like, it kind of reminds me a little bit of this year, to be honest.
That's what I've been saying all year.
Like, I watch the Pies and Lions games pretty much most weeks. They're the only 2 games of footy I really watch. And I sort of have had that feeling going into Collingwood games. Probably more recently, that just like no one's going to beat them. Like, I don't really see anyone beating them, and I don't want to put the marker on them too early. But it's like, yeah, I just feel like that. There's a bit of that feel of like, just like, I mean, who's going to really? I mean, it is hard because like it just takes that one day. But like at the moment, I just feel like they're such in complete control of their game, and it just looks like they're playing some really good football, and it's like it's just hard to see anyone going to beat them.
Yeah, it just feels like when they get challenged now that they're just doing enough to win. But when they do get challenged, they can just go up another gear and just do what they need to do to win.
Yeah.
But we were talking about before, it'd be nice to see them. I don't know they beat Carlton easy, but they're not going too well at the moment. It'd be nice to see them just have a ruthless, power
100%.
start and just put the obviously the foot on the throat early and just run away with it early. I don't think we've seen that sort of 100-point win against
this week would be a good test.
Yeah.
I think because they'll really the Gold Coast will really get themselves up for this one. Yeah, this will be their game.
It's hard to beat up there, aren't they? Gold
yeah,
Coast,
most guys. Yeah, it's like one of those. They're sort of turning that ground into a bit of like the Lions were over the last couple of years. Like the Lions barely lose at home these days. And it's sort of, I think, the Gold Coast really try and emulate that as well. I've heard them talk about things in press conferences and stuff about them trying to turn that ground into a bit of a fortress, which is like what the Lions do at the Gabba. So it's definitely an advantage. The weather also sort of plays a part because having played in Queensland for those 4 years, like that humidity is something you can't really train for. Like I remember,
it's a bit dewy. Slippery. But
I remember we used to have like. When we used to do extra touch, like so when I was at Lions, I used to have a bucket of balls and they just put detergent in there and just like wet the balls, and you'd do like just heaps of touch with like slippery balls.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Simon Black used to run that a lot, and like obviously he was one of the best players below his knees. He used to run sort of all sorts of drills like that. So I remember, having done heaps of that sort of stuff before. But the ball gets so slippery up there, especially like in that nighttime period. Where it's a bit humid.
Good for the Pies to do that this week then.
I wonder if they're training at the moment, so I wonder if they're doing that.
Yeah, maybe they should.
Bit of soapy bucket water.
Just head down there after this and get buckets.
And let them know, mate. Let them know. So from that 2011 period, we go into that succession plan. Buckley takes over as coach, and then there's a few years where it's just really, really down. How was that transition from success to, back down the bottom, not the bottom of the ladder, but back down. It was a bit of a decline because, I mean, from 2010, 2011, 2012 was... That was that, I think...
Was that Bucks' first year?
Yeah.
I think it was,
We lost that final.
Prelim in Sydney, wasn't it?
Was it Sydney or Port
Adelaide? I think a prelim in Sydney, I'm pretty sure it was. Yeah, I'm trying to remember now.
Top four, then top
one.
I reckon it was a prelim in Sydney. Yeah. But don't hold me to that. I have to check that. But yeah, that was Bucks' first year. But so from 2010 to, it was like a slow decline. So it was like win the premiership 2010, lose the premiership in 2011, prelim 2012, and then it sort of just steadily went back down. So it was an interesting sort of period. I was still relatively young at the time, and like 2012 was. That was my Copeland Trophy year as well. Yes, so like that was the best year that I'd had at that stage of my career. But I was still relatively young, and so you're still sort of looking to those senior players, and the feel amongst like some of the influencers and the key guys at the club was like it was a bit restless about the whole thing because I think some of those guys had really close relationships with Mick. And then some of them had played with Bucks, and I don't think many of them had great personal, relationships with Bucks. So potentially that carried over into Bucks' coaching career and their playing career still, and it was just that crossover. So I don't know, but the feeling that I had about the whole thing wasn't solid anyway. Like there was some uneasiness about it. But at the end of the day, you sort of try and get on with things.
Privy to those conversations with the Heath Shaws,
and,
Look, Harry O'Brien's and Heath Elamumbas.
What's his name?
All those guys that sort of and Alan Didak was probably another one too. Him and Bucks had a bit of a love-hate relationship along the journey. Probably didn't like the way the change. They loved the Mick. The way he did things, the way he dealt with players, and his game plan, and then that shift.
I think that was the biggest thing, to be honest. So I think Mick's handling of some of those guys, like sort of personalities and their lifestyles, potentially was just very different to the way Bucks handled it. I think just that man management side of things was what was probably the biggest difference.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know, but like those guys, I think Dale Thomas ended up moving on. He Shaw moved on. Dids continued to play, but then was playing some BFL, and then that was a bit uneasy. Like it was just, it was one of those times where I think there was some bit of uncertainty. And it probably caused a bit of angst throughout the whole group, which ultimately is detrimental to your playing side of things. So. Yeah,
it really probably looked like from there that Bucks was trying to go, we need to do a bit of a renovation on the run, get the dead wood out, all the guys that are quality players, but probably I'm not getting along with too well at the moment from a connection point of view, bring the next crop through and trying to fast track it. And was that part of the decline?
Yeah, I think the problem with that is, though, like some of those guys, in inverted commas, the dead wood, like they were the influences amongst the group. So like that filters back through the group. And at any club, there's always those sort of key people that, whether you know it or not, you look to, and their voices are strong, and they do influence the group, and that was where.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because I reckon Mick was really good. He was really good at befriending, those guys that were, the Rat Pack guys, and just getting in with that crew.
Well, I
and
found
turning
that.
a blind eye to certain things, being disciplined when he needed to, but turning a blind eye and letting them be themselves a little bit. And I reckon he got respect from those guys because of that.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because like I've done a few sporties and done a few chats before, and one of the questions is always that question about like, how did you find Mick and Bucks? And I always say the same. So when I was coached by Mick, like I wouldn't say I liked Mick, but like I respected Mick. Like he was someone that like walking through the hallway with him, like I was like sort of wanted to curl into a ball and just hide, like he was someone that he had that sort of aura about him, and that it's what you're sort of saying. Like I feel like those guys had his respect, and they had his respect, and it was one of those things where I think Mick was that old school mentality, like you have to earn it. Like so, for a young guy coming in, like he was just someone that wasn't easy to talk to. But in saying that, like if you played your role, and he would be directly honest with what he wanted you to do, and if you did that, he would keep picking you.
That's right.
To the detriment of like guys like Tarkin Lockyer, and they so like Jared Blair, I remember came in, couldn't get it. Like Tarkin couldn't get his spot back because Jared Blair just kept playing his role, and Mick would just keep picking him, despite probably having a better, solid like long-term relationship with Tarkin. And
you
like
got to
probably
respect that as a coach, don't you?
You do.
You're making hard calls against people that you got great connections with for a long period of time. That can't be easy.
Yeah, and I think that's where like they were just different. I think Mick was better at man management. I think tactically Bucks was probably one of the best coaches that I had. There's no doubt about that. Like him and Justin Lepich were probably the two of the coaches that I would say were the best that I had tactically, like in seeing the game and like just being able to articulate that. But probably two of the worst in terms of like their man management skills and potentially letting their own egos sort of get the better of them.
Yeah, gotcha. That's interesting. So that's probably more important than anything now, because you've got most line coaches are pretty, cluey, the footy IQ and their preparation, no stone goes unturned. So you kind of got to be a little bit more of a people manager rather than, you still got to be able to coach, let's be honest. But you see what Fly's doing at the moment. He's got good people underneath him and directing the ship, and he's really just been...
I look at Chris Fagan, to be honest, because Chris Fagan was probably... And this is no disrespect to Chris, but he's probably the worst coach that I had tactically. Like, so in terms of like his reviews and stuff, and it may have got a lot better because he was only a young coach at that time. But like he had some really good people around him. And like his man management skills were like, so his relationships that he had with some of the younger players like were probably the best that I'd seen. So like it's interesting, like which way you look at it both ways. Do you need a coach that's very gifted tactically, or do you need someone that just gets how to bring a group together and how to manage them all?
That's right. Chris Fagan was my coach in the under-18s in Tassie Mariners.
Oh, right,
So I remember him being organised and more of a manager of people.
He
that's
was.
what I remember.
And it comes from you. Like I think he's been in footy a long time, and usually in those sort of roles where it's about sort of managing the organisation like more holistically. Like so. Yeah, he was much better in that sort of aspect, but I think it's what Brisbane needed at the time. They needed someone that was like that figure to come in and just hold a group together, because like Brisbane had retention issues. So it was like, I remember going through the early stages when I was captain there, and my sole focus like was just to be able to make young guys feel comfortable. So whether that was like having them over for dinner or spending more time with them like throughout the club or going for coffees with them, like it was just about that, getting them to feel. Because you got to remember as well, like guys that move into states, it's a big thing. Like, you know, they're coming from their homes, like 18-year-old boys. It's like a pretty intimidating sort of environment to just go and move away from and have no support around you. So, like, that was the biggest thing that sort of shifted, I guess, from the days when, like, Leper was around to just sort of identify that was the thing that sort of forget football, just make these guys feel like comfortable and like this is a club and this is where they can sort of turn to if things are tough. And the rest will take care of itself, because you all know you can play football. Yeah, that's right. You know, the football side will come. Just make sure that you need to get that real important vibe around making sure that they're comfortable.
So what was that? What was that like, moving from the biggest club in the land in Collingwood and not be, or still a leader but not, you know, not captain or anything? Then moving to Brisbane, who were sort of coming up, still down the bottom of the ladder, and then, you know, having to be captain with all these extra responsibilities, and, you know, the much publicised trade in, which you know, nets us Jordan De Goey, Jack Crisp and stuff, and, you know, you go up there
steak knives.
There's the old steak knives. Yeah, you go up there for family reasons and stuff. So it was a win-win for everyone. But like, what was that like? All that extra responsibility.
Well, it's funny because, like, you know, I still cop shit about the whole trade thing now, you know, like it's interesting, but like I have nothing to do with like who the club gets and who the club doesn't get. I just go and do my job.
I was thinking the exact same thing. You know, like no player ever thinks about how the quality of the trade that they're put into. All you're thinking about is some security and some cash in my future. And going to being around a good club, around good people. That's all you think about, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's I think that's the naivety of people as well, and like obviously having the black and white glasses on, or whichever team they support, you know, like, and you understand that, but at the same time there is a bit of a human element to it. You know, at that stage for me, like the trade was around like literally my dad was terminally ill, so I wanted to spend as much time as I could with Dad. I probably would have, you know, to be honest, if I had of. Brisbane wouldn't have been the club that I went to if my brother wasn't there. I probably would have gone to the Gold Coast, because that's where Dad lived. He actually lived on the Gold Coast, so I would have been even closer. But because I had that connection with obviously Clay being at Brisbane at the time, like it just sort of made sense, like from a comfortable point of view. And Brisbane to Gold Coast only 45 minutes, so it's not a huge trip anyway. And Dad spent most of his time at my place as it was. So yeah, it was. It's sort of that evolution of life, you know. Like as you get older, you get more mature. So as I was maturing into my football career, leadership became more of a, you know, I identified it as something that I was always like, when I was at school, like had bits and pieces of roles within school captains, and like, so I always had that sort of leadership skill. And then I was also around probably one of the best captains that I'd played under in Nick Maxwell. So he was, you know, probably someone that was, I guess would say himself, limited in ability, but just a really good leader of men. And really organised. So, like, I had that sort of experience having played under him. And then when I got to Brisbane, what was clearly evident was that the club was in a bit of a rabble, and it just, nothing was secure. It just seemed very, very, you know, vulnerable to whatever it was, to loss, to losing players, to even from, like, a board point of view, like financial, like, it was just a rabble. The whole place just seemed to be a mess. And it was just sort of... I just looked at it like, you know, I wanted to take on that challenge of just trying to bring the players a bit closer together and set higher standards. The facilities, like, were chalk and cheese, like having gone from Collingwood to Brisbane, you know, just some really big, stark differences. And now they've got some really state-of-the-art facilities, but when I got there, you know, the facilities were nothing like what I was used to. And it was just sort of one of those things where I just thought, look, I'm going to try and make a difference. And, I sort of changed basically a lot of my training habits. I was always a hard trainer, but I probably took that to a new level and just got young guys to sort of look in. And I think a lot of those guys now, like, I mean, if you spoke to Cam Rayner, Jared Berry, Hugh McCluggage, these guys that were in their first years when I was sort of trying to make a difference, I reckon if you asked a lot of them, like, who were one of the harder trainers, like, they would have said me. And it's just one of those things that I tried to just implement into my game. It wasn't natural as such, but it was just something that I looked at and thought, if I can start setting a standards, it's going to help the performance of some of these younger guys. And then ultimately, like at the end of...
We've done a good job with those guys, by the way.
Yeah.
They're playing some pretty good footy.
Well, they always had the talent. Yeah. Like, that was evident. It's for those guys, it was just about keeping them together.
Yeah.
Like, if you could keep those guys together, they were going to have success.
Sure.
Like, it doesn't matter who was coaching them.
Yeah.
Like, if you could just keep them together, which is what Chris and some of the leaders at the club did, they were going to play good football.
Yeah.
Like, they're all highly touted draft picks. They were
good players.
just good players.
Very good players. Yeah.
And good people. Like, like just really, really good kids.
Yeah.
Like Jared Berry, like in particular, he was just one of the better kids that I've ever come across in football. Just a really genuine guy, hard worker. Wasn't overly polished, but just one of those guys you want in your team every day. And he'd been through some adversity in his life as well, and potentially that fast-tracked his maturity. Like, his mother died early of breast cancer. So, like, he was just a really level-headed kid, great family. Like, met his dad, met his brother, and they were just, like, just a really, really good family.
Yeah.
So, like, he'll like, I've got no doubt he'll be a future captain of that club.
Yeah.
Well, so, you then come back to the Pies. What was that? What was that sort of like, that, getting traded back and wanting to come back home, and I guess the big motivation for that?
Well, again, it's like, it's just those misconstrued things throughout, like, football circles, that just rumours that travel and fly, and it's like, I actually, so the truth to this story is I actually went to Brisbane, the club, like, so I think it was David Noble at the time. I went to David Noble and I literally said, because Dad had passed away at that stage, and, like, Brisbane, like, I enjoyed the club, but I didn't like living in Brisbane. Like, Melbourne was always going to be home, and I was always going to come back to Melbourne. It's just sort of probably happened a little bit sooner than what I thought. And originally I signed a 6-year contract, so I was 4 years in. And so I went to Brisbane and I said, look, at that stage, so the last year I'd played there, I actually had a pretty good year, considering, some of the personal difficulties I was going through. It was probably actually one of my better years outside of my Copeland Trophy year. So I think I finished in the top handful of players in the coaches' votes, and just personally, it was actually not a bad year football-wise, but there was obviously a lot of difficulties going on outside it. And so I went to Brisbane and I said to them that I was going to go back to Melbourne at the end of my contract. So if they wanted to trade me now, while I had some currency, I would entertain it. So I remember having that conversation at the time. They said they were going to keep me, and that was it. Like, so I thought, whatever, like, that's fine. I'll just go back in 2 years. So I was prepared to stick out that 2 years. But if they wanted to trade me, at least the club would have got something for me. Whereas if I had have waited, I would have walked as a free agent. They wouldn't have got pretty much no compensation for a 30-year-old that potentially at that stage may not have even been playing well. I gave the club the option. I sort of wanted to look after the club.
100%.
And so then at the best and fairest, under the idea that I was actually staying, I said that I was looking forward to basically staying and playing with the boys, and then that's come back to bite me because then after that they ended up trading me. So they must have rethought it, entertained it, and then I got a call from my manager saying that the club were willing to actually trade me.
And that obviously was
after.
That was
so
during
that was
trade week or before?
No, so that was after the best and fairest. After I'd already said that I was looking forward to playing with the players. So people were like blowing up. You said at the best and fairest that he was playing. And so again,
that's a spin though, the media though too, because they'll sell the story that's more entertaining than the truth. Unfortunately, and it doesn't matter if some of the information is misconstrued or mixed in. It doesn't matter. It's just what sells.
That's what I mean. You never know the truth about anything. That's why I sort of never judge people now, like, because it's just like, people have their own explanations, and like,
that's right.
I know what happened. But unfortunately, like, and look, fortunately, I got what I wanted. Like, I wanted to go back to Brisbane. It was just unfortunate the way it panned out. Like, it just, I wish they just had have been honest with me earlier. And I got nothing against Brisbane. Like, I still wish them all the success, and I love watching them win the flag. Like, despite being against Collingwood, like, it was hard. But seeing some of these younger guys that I seen sort of start there and then go through some of the shitter times and then obviously win a flag, like, it was nice to see. But it's just one of those things where there's always there's always conversations and stuff that have taken. It's never what it seems like the media portray anyway. As you said, like it's never the truth.
So you Collingwood Brisbane grand final. What's going through your head when you're watching that? Like mixed emotions, obviously.
I don't know. Like I've and you talk about I've got a softer spot for Collingwood. Only because like I think I started there and like that's where I spent the majority of my time. And I think that's where like I developed probably more as a person. And look, you know what? Probably the last 2 years I was there, it's probably where I developed the most.
Okay.
And I was actually barely there.
Yeah,
it's an interesting like that period of time where I came back and just had some really complex issues. And I don't think people really understand the complexity of some of the issues that I was dealing with. And you never plan that. That's the thing. Like I never came back to the club thinking, I'm not going to be able to see out those 4 years, I think, whatever they signed me for. Like it's like I don't ever think that I fully came back expecting to do that. But things just got really complex within my life and like it just spiraled really quickly. And I wasn't able to essentially fulfill that. And I had to make a call where it was like, do I, continue my road to recovery whilst being on an AFL list, which is probably going to be really unrealistic and hard, or do I just walk away from football and try and focus on my own life? And at that stage I've got wife and kids, so it's like you got to make those tough calls. And it doesn't. I know it upsets a lot of people, and that's understandable. People love the club, and that's fine. But at the same time, you got to understand there is more to life than football. And I had to make some really tough personal calls that ultimately have made me a much better human being now. And
so no regrets on when you finished up or anything.
Nah, like the only like I do. It's hard because I do look at like Steele and stuff now, and he's still playing, and I'm like, I think to myself like, if I hadn't have got into if things had gone differently, would I still be playing? And it's just a tough question to answer. But I do look at Steele still playing. I'm like, I do envy that. Like it's it's really admirable and it's great what he's achieved. But at the same time, then I look at my own personal development and where I've got to as a human, and it's like, I think that I wouldn't have got there if some of those issues hadn't have happened. So it's like, it's one of those double-edged swords, there's pros and cons to everything. But there's no regrets for the decision that I made, because ultimately it's made me a much better human being as a consequence.
Yeah. You make decisions at the time, don't you, based on your current situation, don't you? It's a little bit like investments as well. If you need to sell your house because you need the cash at the time, there's no point looking back 10 years' time and going, hang on a minute, we should have held on to it at $3 million.
Well, it's just the difference, I guess, with me as to any other Joe Blow is that I'm under the spotlight.
Exactly right.
And I'm like playing for the biggest club in the land, and it's just like there's a lot of people that are invested in that club, and I get that. But sometimes I don't think people really understand the human nature and the element of it. Like, I mean, if it was their son or their daughter going through the same things, I think they would be erring on the side of what I did.
Well, footy's hard enough, as it is. Like I just remember back of the ebbs and flows and the good times, and there's times when you feel like you don't even want to play footy anymore. But if you've got mental health issues or you've got family issues or relationship issues, whatever it might look like in it, and you bring that all in, and you're having a tough time with footy at the same time, that can just spiral, especially with media and scrutiny and everything else. And
that's what I found, to be honest. Like I got it. Like in terms of addiction, like my addictions were relatively short. Because overall, like I've done a lot of, I've actually sort of helped a lot of people since some of my addictions, and I've done a lot of research and stuff on it. And it was a relatively short sort of period of time, but how quickly it can spiral is the thing that's really quite scary. Because 1 minute I'm back at the club and I'm training and I'm feeling good, and the next minute it's just like it can just really go downhill quite quickly, and then all of a sudden you're in this big hole and you're just sort of not knowing how to get out of it. And that's where I got to. And with some really good help, I was able to sort of get out of that. But it's interesting now, like, because you still get the comments online, and like it's funny because like I haven't gambled now for 6 years. I haven't taken a drug for 5. Like it's just so far in the past.
Well done to you, man.
That's
what people.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing. Like and a lot of people don't this is the thing, like, you don't understand as a footballer, like, when you're solely focused on football and it's your job, you don't really understand the issues that are in society. And, like, when I went through that, like, I started to really understand on the back of people coming to me, like, because my story was so public. So for every person that, you know, says, oh, you're a drug addict, you're a gambling addict or whatever, there's literally 10 people that are coming to me asking for help. Yeah. Like, so in my inbox, like on Instagram, like, I don't care about those minority of people that just want to bag you and not really understand anything of the situation, because I know I've got other people that are coming to me for advice and help. And that's the thing that becomes quite evident, is that this is a society, like as a society, we've got a lot of issues around gambling and drugs and whatever drug it is. Like, my drugs weren't like sort of probably your standard party drugs that a lot of people are addicted to, but like, you know, it's still a drug and it's still an addiction and it's still very hard to break. So like, that's sort of what I try and focus a lot of my energy on now, is trying to just help people. And I'm even trying to do some work within that to make it sort of a career pathway as well, where it's like trying to sort of life coach some people in that aspect of their lives, because it's quite a common thing. That's what I mean. Like, it's my inbox, like, always is flooded with people about.
Well, you got an experience, and you know, you
that's
can share that experience
100%,
and support people.
That's
it's not
the
just
thing.
a counsellor or a psychologist or whatever it might be. Just going, hey, this is what we need to do. You can share what you've been through, and then, you know, that can really.
That's the thing within football, like, because the thing that I found the hardest about fronting up to the club was I just found that no one understood. Like, I was like, there was no one I could really go. That was like, I could go to see a therapist. It wasn't there. But like, there was no one that had like any. You know, I remember ringing Fev. Like, so I remember getting Fev's number and calling, because he had the gambling addiction. So I remember, but that's what I craved. Like, I was craving people that had potentially had this experience, because I was. The thing that I hated the most was the guilt, like the guilt around it all. Like, I hated what I was doing. Like, I just literally hated everything about it. And like, what I wanted to know and what I wanted assurance of was that I could get out of it. So like, ringing people like Fev and just saying like, how do I get it? Like, and having those like real life stories of like, you can beat it.
You had a good chat with Fev, did you?
Yeah, I spoke to him on the phone when I was actually in rehab. So like, I was in Sydney and I spoke to him on the phone. And just those types of conversations are the ones that give you that little bit of hope and confidence to move forward.
Specifically to you, can you remember?
It was more. It wasn't any sort of. It was just more his story, like listening to his story and knowing that you could get on top of it.
Gotcha.
Like, because when you're in these situations, like, you feel like you're doomed. Like, you feel like you're going to be like that forever. And the hard part was just actually knowing that I could get on top of it and like looking for that evidence. Like, so you're always looking. So it's like even watching. Planning for an opposition team, and you're like looking at how to, and the coach is saying this is what they do, and then you go to the tape and you're looking for that evidence and watch it and how to actually beat it. It's the same thing. So like, I was just looking for real life stories where I could actually get verbal confirmation that you can get on top of it, even though like I probably consciously deep down knew that I could. But it's like, you just don't see it when you're in that stage. And so like, that was the thing that I looked for the most, and it was just like that evidence of, you can do it. You can get on top of it. It's just going to take this, and this. And probably this, and this isn't that important at that time. It's just hearing that you can get on top of it was the most important thing, because it just gives you that little bit of extra motivation to keep on going. And unfortunately for a lot of people, they don't, because they end up ultimately taking their lives because they just feel like you can't get on top of it. That's the hardest part, like just knowing, because it's the same thing. Every time I talk to someone now, it's the same thing. Like, how did you beat it? How did you, like, they want to know the exact same things. And it's just that sort of evidence. And that's where I think football clubs could explore bits and pieces about just people like myself, because I guarantee you, I will not be the last person that has a gambling addiction in the AFL.
We've seen it in local footy as well. I've coached so many players that have had dramas. I find it astounding, like, with the whole promotion of gambling and the sponsorship, and then wild. You know, giving the odds, this, that, and the other, and then at the end, the gamble responsibly.
I can't stand it.
What do you think about all that stuff?
I can't stand it, and I think even just having people of influence promoting gambling now, like I see that a lot. Like, you just even social media influencers, like just obviously getting free money to go and gamble to promote it. It's like, I just think it's just shit. Like, I try and keep away from all that stuff. Like, I'm so far past gambling. Like I can literally, I could literally have a day out at the races and not even think about gambling. Like that's how far removed I am from it. Like,
awesome.
But it's interesting because like if you had asked me that 6-7 years ago, I would have seen a day where I couldn't gamble. Like so, and it's different. Like people, this is the key, I guess, to getting on top of it is that to understanding the why. Like, so for me, like I was experiencing some like deep traumatic stuff about my relationship with my dad and like just things that were making me want to just turn away from what I had to deal with and just numb myself. So like there's always an underlining issue, and it's like no one ever wakes up in the morning and goes, I want to be a drug addict, or I want to gamble every like there's always that sort of deep and underlining thing that you have to get on top of, and it's that bit of willingness from the individual themselves, because only ultimately like I can help myself.
So really, just you were looking for a distraction.
100%. That's all it was. It was just literally numbing the pain. And that's what it did. That's all it did. Like I had no emotion around any of it. Like so, I didn't care whether I won or I lost. Like all it was a distraction. So solely that's all I literally. And then the drugs became basically the thing. So I stopped gambling earlier than the drugs. So the drugs basically just took over from the gambling. Like once I stopped gambling, the drugs actually helped stop gambling. So like it just took over. And then that was the one that was like really, really hard to break, because obviously there's like that physical sort of addiction then as well. Like your body actually needs it. Whereas like gambling's a bit more of a psychological one. So it's like there's no sort of physical adaptations. It's just more like a mental one where it's like, oh, I've got to gamble each day. It's like your brain's telling you. But like when you're hooked on drugs, it's like your body actually needs them to function day to day. So that's when it becomes quite difficult. It's not even about getting high or numb. It's literally just about functioning. So
you talk about like your past like addictions and before you talked about being a leader as well at Brisbane. Is that where your life is sort of leading to at the moment, where you want to be this beacon of hope for people? You're saying people are coming into your Instagram DMs and stuff, like you just want to from everything that you've been through to sort of be like, honestly, from an outside looking in, almost like a phoenix rising from the ashes, really.
Yeah, I have a business at the moment, so I basically distribute like heaps of timber and timber coatings and all sorts of things. But funnily enough, got into on the back of some of my mental health issues. So I've got that business, but I'm sort of currently in a personal. I'm in a divorce at the moment anyway, so that's been going on the last 2 years. So I'm just sort of in a bit of a holding pattern as to what I do career-wise, because I've already got the business. It's just whilst you're going through a divorce, and any male or female will tell you don't really want to start a business whilst going through a divorce. So it's like I'm sort of in a bit of a holding, but I'm doing a sort of little bit of research and stuff in the background around potentially part-time going into, because I've still got the business and I want to start to develop it more and then potentially get into something else on the back of that. But at the same time, one of my real passions is literally helping people through this. So how do I make that? So like I'm just researching some like counselling courses at the moment. But I want it to be more focused around like targeting men in particular, and more of a personal sort of life coach. So not so much where like I'm sitting in the chair and then they come here and then like that sort of counselling therapy session. It's more of a life sort of coaching sort of experience where
relationship
where I can continue
like a PT.
Like I don't want to have like just a lot of clients come through. Like I really want to specialise in just having a handful of people that I continue to help, and then once they're on the right track, then obviously open up more spots. And it's just something that I want it to evolve, but because I already do it. This is the thing. Like I look at it and I'm like, I already do this. Like, and it does take time. So how can I make it more of a sort of from the business aspect side of things, and just being able to continue something that I'm passionate about. Like because when you I think anyone that goes through something that's difficult, I think they automatically become passionate about helping others because they sort of get how hard it is, and until you actually go through something. It's like when you talk about your kids, like for people that don't have kids, like you can't explain the love you have for kids.
Jeez, this bloke's obsessed.
Yeah, exactly. You can't explain that feeling. It's sort of similar. Like you can't explain what it's like to sort of help someone else until you like really experience and go through something yourself. Like because you just really get what they're going through, and like you don't want them to feel what you felt.
Yeah,
So it's like it's hard. It's one of those things that's sometimes hard to articulate, but because you just need to be able to attach yourself or associate yourself with that feeling.
Yeah. Should we talk about Kane as well?
Well, I was just about to say. Yeah, I was just about to say.
The volcano.
Yeah,
mate. So that text
it
to
erupted
Shane,
on
that
social
comment.
media.
Jeez, that
the other
erupted,
day,
didn't
it?
It's I know you do like to comment back, like you said a bit earlier, but Kane is one of those guys where he just dangles it a little bit, and I've done it before. You've done it. You do it all the time.
I do it to everyone too. I'm the same as you, man.
Yeah.
Well, I can't help myself.
And now it's just snowballed, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, I got nothing against Kane personally. It's
Yeah.
just like sometimes I just think he crosses a line.
Yeah, 100%.
And he just, I don't know, it seems to be an undertone to everything Kane says that it's like, it seems to be quite personal. Like, I don't know whether it's the way he delivers things or it's the accumulation of the same comments over and over at specific things. But, like, I don't know, he just frustrates me at times because I don't think he helps. Like, as someone that's played and understands how some, and Brody, you would know this as well, like, you know, how some of these comments can have an influence over your own mental state and then ultimately your performance. Like, I just think sometimes he needs, and he would know this as well. That's the thing that I don't understand. Like,
former player.
so it's just literally, for me, like an outsider looking in, I think it's just all about holding this reputation of the villain and like, he obviously makes a living off the back of that, which is totally fine. He's got a family to feed, but like at the same time, everyone else is entitled to their opinions, and it's my opinion that at times he crosses a line, and I'm not afraid to call it out. Like, I think a lot of players would share the same thoughts around Kane, but it's just like, if they were to say something like I did, it would be even bigger news.
Yeah, exactly
so, like,
right.
that,
Exactly.
You know,
right.
because I'm removed from the game now, like, I have no issue with saying stuff because, I mean, like, I don't understand. Like, in reference to that comment and that post, it's like, you know, what are his rights to ask for someone who signed the contract? Like, what's it got to do with him?
Yeah.
It's like, you know what I mean? Like, who signed your contract?
Yeah, exactly. Right. And you see, like, you know, earlier this year, the Doggies in North Melbourne banned him from the rooms.
So you got to, like, I mean, that in itself says that there's issues because that's just not a.
No one does that.
Well, that's right, and that's not just a football department driven thing. That's obviously players coming to them and going, "We've had enough of this bloke. Like, I don't want to talk to him."
Yeah.
And then you even look at his altercations with Luke Beveridge, and like it's just you know, like where there's smoke, there's fire. And there's obviously a lot of people that don't like the way he goes about it. There's probably people that do.
Yeah. Well, I look through those comments that you're going back and forward, and at the end he's written, "You're killing it, mate." Yeah, you're killing it, mate. So I'll break that down and go, hang on a minute. So what he's saying is, I'm doing ultimately unbelievably well. I'm successful. I'm making a heap of money while I'm potting blokes on the way through.
And he doesn't even...
And you're not. That's what he's saying.
He doesn't even know what I'm doing.
He does not know what you're doing. And how do you rate success is what I want to know. Like, I rate success on if you're a good person, if you're you're good to your family, if you're happy.
Yep.
You know, like, you don't have to be making $10 million
to be happy.
a year to be potting blokes every week to be successful. You know, there's many different ways you can be successful in life, and he didn't have a clue what you're doing. I just thought that was the biggest egotistical comment of all time for someone to say that. That was nearly like he wanted you to know that I'm the man and you're not. Like, come on, mate. Let's get serious.
Probably came on the back of my comment about because he tried to tag me once and I ran rings around him.
That's right.
He tried to tag me and I made it. I let him know about that. I think I got 2 or 3 Brownlow votes that game. He was actually one of the easiest players I played on. To his defence, he was probably at the end of his career.
I played on him at the start of his career, and that was a famous game where they beat us by a goal over there, and he stuck his finger up me after the game, and that was an interesting one.
He gave you the bird.
He gave me the bird after it all finished.
First couple of
I
games,
said to him, the old chestnut. It was pretty bad, ordinary comment. It was probably hears it every week. But I said, "You're only getting a game because of your old man." And he
probably
just
true.
Like, you could just see the steam just coming out of his ears.
Yeah, look, I don't know. Like you get the. it's one of those things, isn't it? Like, if you're going to give it, you got to be able to take it. And look, I don't have, like I said, personally, I've got nothing against him. I just think at times he's crosses that line. And if I mean, it's like he thinks people will never make mistakes. You know what I mean? Like going after Noah Bolter, like, I mean, the guy's had a rough year. Like, given, he made a mistake.
Yeah.
Like, he'd be the first one to put his hand up and say, I made a blue. What's the point of, like, going after him saying, oh, who signed your contract? Like, to me, it's just like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Like,
and like
no
you
other
said,
person
like
in the media is making these comments.
Break down his year, like, I know he's done the wrong thing, Noel Bolter, and it's been well publicised, but he would be going through some mental health stuff
100%.
through all this. You can absolutely guarantee it. And he's trying to get himself up to play footy. Now his form's not great. We know what he can do at his best. Like, he's earning that money at his best, and they're seeing him get through this year and then getting back to that. That's why they're giving him.
I think the crappy thing about society is exactly what you said, but people will go, oh, he deserves it though because he made a mistake. It's like just because he made a mistake or he got himself into a situation that he regrets. Doesn't mean he's not allowed to feel emotional feelings. Doesn't mean that he's not allowed to feel remorse or like that's the thing that sort of annoys me. Like, it's like people validate the things that people like Kane say because he went and made his own bad choice. It's like people make bad choices every single day. So we just don't know about them because they're not in the public spotlight. Like,
that's right.
So often a lot of feelings and emotions come on the back of bad choices. Doesn't mean we can't feel them because.
And we're all on a journey where there's ups and downs and mistakes being made. And at the end of the day, you're looking to get out the other side and become a better person for all the good and the bad experiences that you've had along the journey.
A lot of your positive and your learnings, in my own life anyway, like a lot of the great learnings have come from my mistakes.
That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So one thing that's always stuck with me, someone said, I can't remember who said this to me, but someone said to me, if you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. If you don't learn, you don't get better.
1,000%. Yeah.
So it's just, if you don't make mistakes, how do you evolve as a person?
And that's all we want in life, just to get better and be a better person for ourselves, for our family, for our friends, and it's just so good to see you. Well, from again outside looking in, from where you were to where you are now, looking healthy, fit, happy as well. And
looking very fit, man, by the way. And I didn't know you was as tall as what. I was reading your bio on the way in, and gee, he's 6'2". I didn't realise Beamsy was that tall.
Yeah, a lot of people say. A lot of people say that to me. But I'm also like, I'm naturally a bigger guy. Like, so it's interesting because people always say to me now, "Geez, you're big." Like, and I'm like, yeah. Well, I wasn't like when I was playing footy, I wasn't this big. Like, I've put on what did I used to play? I've put on about 15 kilo. So like, but it's like 15 kilo of like good solid muscle. Whereas when I first finished, it was 15 kilo of just slop. For the first 12 months, I reckon I just went on a full binge. I was just like, oh, I'm going to live like, just do things that I've never done, like go through drive-thrus and like, stuff that just, it wasn't me. Like after 12 months, I remember going on Big Brother and I looked at like myself on TV and I was like, oh, you're a sloppy. Like I was in bad nick. And that's when
you're right into your fitness though at the moment.
Yeah, I love it.
I noticed you're doing a lot of gym work, and you told me, I think we were messaging each other, and you said no cardio for me anymore.
No. I do the odd bit of, like I go for walks most days.
Okay,
so very light, low level, but it's more about steps and like sort of trimming down a bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, most of my fitness regime is based around weightlifting. So like, I'm feeling really strong at the moment. It's really good. So yeah, me and actually an old teammate of mine at Brisbane, Reece Matheson. So he's like
he's jacked up.
He's right into bodybuilding. He loves it. He's way more into it than me. But like we often chat here and there, and like when he comes to Melbourne, we'll go and do a training session together. But it's just something that I've always been interested in. Like I've always liked sort of lifting weights. And, like I said, I'm naturally
what's
when
I
was
your
playing.
Max bench at the moment, mate? Do you do that?
But just over about 150.
Yeah.
So
pretty good. Yeah. What about when you're playing? Were you lifting heavy weights like that when you were playing, or?
Nah, not like that. Because I was. This is what I was sort of getting to. Like because I was naturally like thicker. Like I always had to really worry about keeping my weight down, so I could run. Yeah. Whereas when I finished football, I just got naturally, like this is where I naturally, like I feel really natural at where I am. Like, so the weight and my body composition is like, I just feel like that's where I should be.
Yeah.
When I was playing football, it was a bit more of a task to sort of like, I look back at photos of myself playing footy and I look really like gaunt in the face and stuff. Like, so it's like, I kind of look at myself and I'm like, oh, I didn't, like, even though I was healthy, I was like, I kind of don't really look that healthy. I feel like
players look a bit like that now, don't they?
Yeah,
just
like
got that.
Just run. It's just all about running now. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't feel like there's any. Even when I started playing, I feel like I was one of those bigger inside midfielder guys, and I just don't feel like there's really any of them anymore.
Not too many. No.
Nah. Like Pendles is probably the last one. Like he's a bit of a thicker guy. Like.
Yeah.
But he's pretty much like, I don't really
Maybe
look across the
Dangerfield,
board. Yeah.
You know, like
but even them, they're like more of like
when
my
you see them
era.
up close, though, they're actually, they look thick on the ground. When you see them up close, they look like they're going to blow away in the wind.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like,
It's amazing how that looks, isn't it?
Yeah,
Like, guys like, it must be the jumpers or something.
Yeah.
Like tight jumpers or whatever it is.
TV lights, you know, oil, solariums.
That's
Not
it.
that I did any of that sort of stuff.
Solly.
But look, just before we wrap up, mate, thank you so much for coming on. Being the first guest on our podcast, it means the absolute world to me. I know it means the world to Dutchy.
I follow your page as well.
Thank you so
I do
much.
follow your page.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Look, before we go, Pies for the flag this year. You feeling it?
Yeah, I am. Yeah.
Hell yeah.
I actually think it'll be Brisbane Collingwood again.
I
If
agree.
they sort of, if that ledger in the finals meets and they can play each other, I just think it'll be them again.
It'll be absolutely huge. Dane, thank you so much, mate. We appreciate
Thanks,
it.
champion. Great
boys.
insight. Great
Cheers.
having you on.
Thanks, mate.
Lovely.